And right now, we are 2 minutes away from the end of the trading day. Romaine Bostick alongside Katie Greifeld, taking you through to that closing bell with a global simulcast. Carol Massar and Tim Stenovec join us now. Welcome to our audiences across all of our Bloomberg platforms, television, radio, our partnership with YouTube. Another interesting day on Wall Street. And in just a few minutes, it might get even more interesting. Earnings scheduled to drop from Intel.
Yeah, which makes me think about that one. I mean, it's little change in today's session. Keep in mind, it's been on quite a run this year, last year. I mean, it gained nearly 12% in yesterday's session. Even the SOX, which has been on a bit of a run, very mellow in today's trade, underperformance. So we'll see what we get from Intel. The expectations, certainly based on that run, I would say are pretty high.
We're also seeing that rotation into small caps continue. The Russell 2000 again outperforming, Katie, the S&P 500 today for a 14th day in a row.
Yeah, we've been keeping a close eye on what's going on with those small caps. What exactly the fundamental story is, again, I'm not quite sure. We've had this conversation before.
I do want to, well, speaking of fundamentals, I do just want to kind of touch back on Intel because we talk about a company. We should point out expectations are for revenue to be down, but the idea is that that slowdown in revenue is actually slowing itself. Remember, on an annual basis, this is a company that saw revenue drop in 2022, 2023, 2024, and it's going to be again in 2025 unless they surprise us in a couple of minutes. But the big expectation right now is what does 2026 look like? Analysts are pricing in a return to revenue growth. Are they going to meet those expectations?
Yeah, exactly. So these are things that we're looking at. You know, I'm just looking at, Intel, I think, actually having, is it a bigger market cap than TSM? I'm going to look this up.
Yeah, look that up here as you walk through the numbers here. Green across the screen, though, a little bit more subdued than the gains that we saw yesterday. The Dow up 0.6%. The S&P up 0.5%. The NASDAQ composite up 0.9%. And the Russell 2000 closes out the day higher by about 0.8% on the day.
All right, just going to the S&P 500, folks. Taking a quick look here, and you're seeing kind of an even split here. You've got about 285 names to the to the upside, excuse me, 214 to the downside, and you've got 4 unchanged.
Let's take a look at the sectors as well. Not quite an even split. You do have 7 sectors in the green, 4 rather, finishing in the red. In terms of what outperformed today, communication services was your big winner. You also had consumer discretionary show up. So too did tech. In terms of what didn't have so great of a Thursday, real estate down by more than 1%, utilities, industrials, and consumer staples as well.
All right, guys, let's get to some of the individual gainers as we await earnings. And I'm going to start with ARM Holding. Chips, though, certainly have been on our mind. ARM Holdings, though, you saw that one gain as much as 8.5% intraday at its highs.
Yeah, I've got to interrupt you now here, Carol. My apologies here. Intel earnings crossing the wire right now. Let's go straight to the revenue forecast. For the first quarter, the company says adjusted EPS will be 0. The street was looking for 8 cents a share. As for the revenue side, the company says revenue for the first quarter, the quarter that we're in right now, $11.7 to $12.7 billion. The street was looking on average for $12.6 billion. So the top end of that range is right around what the street was looking for. But of course, it's a wide range of about $1 billion here. That might be why you're seeing some softness in the shares. As for the quarter that just passed, the fourth quarter revenue did beat $13.67 billion. Adjusted operating margin did beat 8.8%. Adjusted EPS also beat at 15 cents a share. The street was looking, guys, for 8.7.
Yeah, that's the thing. You can see shares actually pairing their decline right now, down about 1.3%, but it's volatile out there. I mean, Romaine makes the good point that the look back, when it comes to the fourth quarter, they actually beat there when it comes to the adjusted EPS, but certainly that first quarter outlook, Tim, is going to be disappointing for a stock that, as Carol said, has had quite the run up.
Yeah, down 4% in the after hours. I'm going through the press release and looking at commentary from Intel's CEO, Lip Bhutan, who says our conviction in the essential role of CPUs in the AI era continues to grow. He continues to say our priorities are clear: sharpen execution, reinvigorate engineering excellence, and fully capitalize on the vast opportunity AI presents across all of our businesses. Intel shares in the after hours bouncing around a little bit, but down about 4.8%.
Just going to layer some commentary from the CFO, Dave Zinsner, also on Intel, saying it sees the lowest available supply in the first quarter before improving in the second quarter and beyond. So we have seen this with a lot of the players in the chip sector. The demand is there, but the supply, they're not able to meet it.
You know, it's kind of interesting. We were speaking with Jay Goldberg over at Seaport earlier today. He's actually relatively bullish on Intel. We should point out this is a stock that has something like 36 holds, something like 7 or 8 sells. There's only 9 analysts out there on the street that have a buy, and Jay is one of them. And he actually thinks that they can actually start to ramp up production on some of these chips. His biggest concern was whether they can do that in a cost-effective way. He said he's going to be really laser focused on what this company has to say on the conference call about those costs going forward.
It was also interesting to hear him explain why we saw such a huge surge in Intel last year. The question was whether Intel was going to be able to continue to exist. Of course, now it has the Trump administration's backing. The Trump administration does have a stake in this company. So
you have a stake in this company. Romaine has a stake in this company. We own 10% of this company as Americans.
Yes.
I think you bring up a really good point. So is this the U.S. backing trade, or fundamentally, is this company getting on a better trajectory? And I think that's where we've got to kind of watch and see what else commentary we get from this company. And is it, able to stick around for a long time?
I think so, yeah, and it'll be interesting how they address that on the conference call. And I think it's kind of, the answer to your question, it's kind of yes and yes, right? This is still about basic, good old-fashioned corporate fundamentals, but also like its place in the AI space. Does that relationship with the U.S., that 10% stake, and whatever sort of things the White House can use their bully pulpit for to sort of help this company build out, does that become the fundamental story? I don't know.
I also want to point out its foundry revenue. Excited to get more color there. Foundry revenue coming in the fourth quarter, $4.51 billion. The estimate had actually been for $4.36 billion. So actually a bit of a surprise there. The big question is, what does the customer acquisition strategy look like? Are they adding new clients there? One of the big fundamental questions about Intel at this juncture and their place, to Romaine's point, in this AI space.
Just to reiterate some headlines as we watch, Intel shares down about 5% in the after hours. The company says it's making good progress in 14A production. Lit Bhutan says production yield's not up to his standards, and the CEO says chipmaker missed a lot of opportunities and says they can't get enough supply to meet orders, though demand is quite strong.
All right, guys, let's go to Capital One Financial, also reporting its earnings after the closing bell. And you've got a couple of headlines, but let's get to one from the Wall Street Journal that it is planning to buy Brex for $5.15 billion in a cash and stock deal. So some movement within another banking company in terms of an acquisition, a pretty sizable one, if you will. The stock right now,
that's a big deal.
Down about 2.6%. So again, confirming that pact. And I'm just going to kind of do a quick look at fourth quarter adjusted. Go.
Sorry, but I just want to say on the Brex deal, because that's a big deal, because we've been talking a lot about these credit card, potential caps on credit card rate fees. And Brex is, this is basically rewards and kind of everything not really fee related, or at least that's their sort of bread and butter, the technology and the rewards that go along with it. So it's kind of interesting to see Capital One leaning deeper into that reward space.
Yeah, I'm looking at the Wall Street Journal write-up of this. Brex oversees close to $13 billion in deposits held at partner banks and money market funds. The acquisition is expected to close in the second quarter of this year. Brex's CEO will plan to continue in the role after this deal closes. Capital One Financial shares down in the after hours by about 4.3%.
All right, folks, back to Intel we go, because we've seen this one kicking around in the aftermarket. Again, the headline, the company giving a lackluster forecast for the current quarter, talking about supply shortages are making it harder to meet customer demand. So once again, a disappointment for investors who kind of were looking for more of a boost from new products. And you can see Intel shares, they are just trading down about 3% here in the aftermarket. And keep in mind, this has been a top performer among the semiconductor names over the last year or so.